is called...
This is amazing. Wow.
Thank you.
Yes. I am so fascinated. You have to tell more now.
So our project is called Technoscape. It's the combination of technology and landscape, and the question about what is natural. And in this video, we're discussing with Timothy Morton and his quotes about what is natural. And I mean, I would say everything is natural. Also, technology is natural because it all comes from nature. And yeah, Technoscape itself is a project which copes with the topic of architecture, anthropology, and art. And the base for this project is the site of extraction in the north of Vienna, Zistersdorf, with the 700 oil pumps, which you already saw in the video.
Yeah.
And it is known for its crude oil resources and this specific landscape where technology and landscape collide. Yeah. And I think it's quite important that for us, this crude oil resource covers the greatest possible period of time. So it brings together so much information, and it gives the space and this life a new kind of liveliness through this information which we gathered out of crude oil. And for us, it was important not only to work with the material itself, but also with the invisible materials, so the ghosts and phantoms which occur on site, and become this important part of this non-human human relationship. And therefore, we dealt with the method which we call phantasmography. And this means tracing the untraceable and combining this to architecture again.
Amazing. So these oil pumps, they are still working?
Still, yeah, for the next 15 years or something. And then they become an abandoned architecture. So they are changing function and are still existing. And it is an architecture that we are very much reliant on at the moment and for the last century or something. And yeah, it's like an extension of how we live, so materialized in form of extracting material from the earth.
And it's interesting that because I was looking also at the oil pumps themselves, that's also the it's almost like the function of it is such a natural movement also, you know?
Yeah, we found it very meditative to be on site. And it's a very much
calming process.
Yeah,
I always said this German quote, it's zwischen den Weinfeldern das immer wiederkehrende Geräusch der eisernen Pferdekopfpumpen, fast schon meditativ. So it means like slowly movements of this, kind of like animals, like huge animals, which are moving their heads. And they have 700s of them in the north.
Yeah, we can compare it to the dinosaurs that, that lived there. And they are actually the material these pumps are pumping out. So it's kind of this circling back, and this it becomes an architecture that's amazing.
Yeah, so time spans become three-dimensional distorted. So for us, this material becomes information, and the information becomes a resource which is extracted by the humans. And for us, or like our project, which we'll see later on, some photos of it, also tries to cover those time spans from the primeval sea to the future, where we don't know where it goes, and if there is still crude oil, and what this would mean for architecture if we don't have this resource anymore. And maybe we share some.
We can
photos.
Okay. But I just want to mention that it's true what you're saying. You know, we're slacking off always things, you know, like that, but also not thinking that that's also for the future or for a benefit that we use it. But yes, show me now your project.
Okay, so
I think it's also important that man extracts not only this raw material, but also the whole history, as we just said. And that crude oil changes the landscape, and therefore can be seen as a kind of mediator between life and death in this case, because we have crude oil which is produced out of those dead animals under the earth, and which is compressed, and then oil is produced, which we bring up again.
So you can pretty much say this life is brought back to life, but to a different life, which is which we are benefiting from. So we are benefiting from life that used to be 2 million years ago.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, it's true.
It is.
Okay.
So you see the filters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see some pictures of our, it was a performance we did with the material and all this information we gathered in kind of a Wunderkammer. It's a collection of all the material we found on site, and we found the information we found, and we produced maps, and we can quickly get through them.
Yeah.
So for us, it was important to have this one key piece or main piece. And this element included like all the information that we found in connection to crude oil and to architecture. And yeah, through our method, which we used, like phantasmography, we tried also to make the invisible visible. And this is what we made through projections. So all the information which we gathered, which is invisible, was projected onto the phantasmograph, this main key piece. And then a whole history or like whole story about this project and about crude oil, yeah, was produced. And before we started building this main piece, we were trying to map the site and go deeper into the site. And the best way to do this is to work with the material itself.
So these maps were produced using this crude oil we found or we got from the site. So we produced the site from the site itself.
Oh, that's amazing.
Maybe, yeah.
These are quite huge, like 80 by 80 centimeters maps out of crude oil.
It's the Vienna Basin, so the area where this oil can be found and all the history behind it. Like it produced different settlements because there is this resource. So it produced labor and how
this is the city itself, like city structure and the networks and the whole settlement, which is caused due to the oil production because people had to live there, they had to work there. So this whole area in the north of Vienna, like this whole architectural area as well, right, is produced or was built because of the oil pumps which they built there.
And also, when we look into the future, what does it mean if there is no crude oil in 15 years? What about the people living there? So it already takes less people to work on the site. So there is a decline in people as well, which is also like.
But this history, was this very easily available to you?
So what we did is that we went there and we were talking to people and we did a lot of interviews and yeah, they told us a lot. I mean, there is visible history, of course. So for example, the interwar period where Sistersdorf received national attention due to the considerable oil discoveries which they had there. And yeah, the first crude oil was discovered in 1930, for example. And then this whole process, which started, got a lot of attention. And then they started with the first boreholes in 1934. And this was quite noteworthy because the daily production of 30 tons of crude oil could already be produced then.